Then we got an update on the Wyatt 6, or at least the Wyatt 6 video. It's Bo Dallas, and it's all the effects and what have you, the distortion. Occasionally it goes from Bo Dallas's face to Uncle Howdy's face. And this disembodied voice asks him about family. He says he took those that no one wanted, the discarded and forgotten, and he gave them a purpose. They're so happy that we remembered them. Being a glutton for punishment doesn't make abandonment hurt any less. We basically get clips of each member and the character and what have you. Bo says has been lost too much, but grief is the price you pay for love. Now we must set the captives free. They need no master. Then he asks if we think that they're sick, and the Invisible Voice says yes. And we get flashes of all the members. Ends on Uncle Howdy. Then back to Bo, who says, then sick is what will be. I'll group this together with what came immediately afterwards and get your thoughts on it, because Gable immediately after that is panicking, going, obviously talking about me. What are you going to do about it, Pierce? And Pierce is basically quite rightly says, you ever stop to think about why maybe people are targeting you? Gable says, I'll fix this, but I can't be responsible for how. And he bails, wants a vacation, bails. And then we see Pierce open his office door, and who's sat in there but a sort of nervous-looking Bo Dallas. Thoughts on all this?
Thoughts on all of this in the Wyatt 6, right? This was the clearest indication yet of a twist. The clearest indication yet that that original reporting from Fightful Select of this is going to be more rooted in reality, not supernatural, and the Wyatt 6 will not be sort of supernatural demonic entities or anything like that. If you combine just the quite almost jarring visual of Bo Dallas just as Bo Dallas as a human being in the world, in the normal world of Raw, sat down. If you combine that with the video and the content of the latest VHS, that to me is the strongest indication yet that this is not a supernatural group, and that it might, as a result, have a fighting chance. Yeah. But there's always a but, and I will get to the but. There's always, even when you entertain the idea of spooky, there's always a problem. And I'll get to the problem, but it's better than what it could be so far. The way Bo Dallas / Uncle Howdy, one and the same, whatever, narrated this video, it was suggestive of the fact that they've taken the decision to adopt these personas for the purposes of what? To intimidate their opponents, for whatever purpose, for whatever ends, they've decided we're going to, it was the line was key. If you want us to be sick, sick is what we will be. Like, they've decided to, basically, this is all a very theatrical, stagey way of saying, we're going to alter our personalities, just like wrestlers do to drive programs in any sort of feud or whatever. We're just going to take on these personas. Is that any different to the Great Muta? Obviously, the Great Muta is like, 10 times better than all of this. But is it any different to something like an alter ego that has been done successfully and without too much in the way of absolute ridicule in the history of professional wrestling previously? Is it any different? And I know these are lofty comparisons, and I'm not suggesting for a moment that Bo Dallas's Uncle Howdy will have the same effectiveness, the same match quality, the same credibility as Mick Foley saying, you know what, I need to go to a certain place before that language and vernacular was bastardized by Adam Copeland. I'm going to be Cactus Jack. The way that this video unfolded, it felt like them saying, right, we've been abandoned, we've been ignored for too long, we sort of want to make a statement, we're going to adopt these alter egos and wreak havoc on WWE or whatever. The way it was presented, and I know there's different things on the show that might undermine this, but that video, if you just take it in isolation, it was very much, we're going to become alter egos. It's been done before successfully. I don't see why, other than the quality of the wrestlers involved, quite frankly, it can't happen again on a pure, I can suspend my disbelief for this, which was always the problem. Now, I'm not a goldfish. I remember the events of last week, and in fact, last night, they're still doing that stagey horror stuff where Nikki Cross emerges from the fog.
It's like a jump scare at the end of that.
And a jump scare at the end of that, And they did that weird light show last week on Raw where they appeared to be, in front of these lights.
The spotlights,
Yeah. The way this seems to be unfolding is that they are just intimidation tactics as opposed to we can conjure light.
Yeah.
We can conjure fog. Does that to me is that too far away to my music magically comes on when I make my entrance? Yeah, I'm not a fan of that point either, to be honest. But in the heightened world of American pro wrestling, how dumb is this really anymore? It was a bit of a turning point potentially in the portrayal and how rooted it might be in reality or otherwise. I've got another problem. I've always got a problem. Yeah. I've got another problem if that is in fact where we're going with this. But what are your thoughts on it? Because you seem...
Yeah, like I've said from the beginning with this, I was always excited to see what this looks like, but incredibly apprehensive because it's... And I know, people have said, oh, you guys have hated it from the beginning. It's just not really our kind of thing.
And that's fine.
But we have said...
Do you like every feature film ever made?
No.
Do you like every pop song ever recorded?
Almost, but no, not quite.
I mean, it's a ridiculous... I'm allowed to like what I like and don't. But the idea that preference doesn't exist is a complete load of bollocks. Carry on.
Yeah, we've acknowledged, though, that the fact it is incredibly popular. It's always been incredibly popular, but this one seems to be really cutting through...
Not incredibly popular.
Yes, but
I've heard the lack of reactions to matches involving these sorts of characters a million times over.
But it's getting a lot of love on social media.
It's over in these buildings, big time.
And obviously, everyone, no matter how you feel about this, wants Bo Dallas to do well with this because my God, what a few years he's been through. Right, so nervous about it. It happens, and I was like, I'm kind of into this. The videos I've been enjoying the last few weeks, we sort of speculated on the preview yesterday whether or not that might be it, whether or not, you've established Bo Dallas is Uncle Howdy is Bo Dallas.
This felt like the last video.
Yeah, now you can go from here. But yeah, I really liked the video aspect of last night. I particularly liked how they didn't get involved in Money in the Bank because it sort of trivializes it straight away of we're here to destroy and change the world and be recognized. And also cost you that briefcase.
Yeah.
It would have muddied the waters a little bit too much for me.
You have to do this sort of thing at some point.
Yes, yeah, it always eventually comes down to actually wrestling, as we often say. But I do like the introduction of, there's Bo Dallas. That's just Bo Dallas. Not Uncle Howdy in the shadows or sign Postman Pierce's office. Bo Dallas is sat there. And you referenced it there. We saw it with, Bray Wyatt. You had The Fiend, but you had that match where once he was just Bray Wyatt from the Firefly Funhouse against Braun Strowman. You've said before, Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, arguably Demon Finn Balor and regular Finn Balor have been you've pushed me to a point where I have to become this, like you say, alter ego character. If that's the direction they're going in, I still withhold judgment until we have a wrestling match. But it's captured people's imagination, no question.
It has. I mean, it all depends. This is the problem, right? Even if we are veering away from a supernatural direction and all of the aesthetics of spooky supernatural stuff, it's all like an intimidation tactic and just a way to do an entrance, basically, which is just part of pro wrestling in the US, right? Okay. Even if we get away from that, everything lives and dies on aura and how much you can take seriously or enough fans can take seriously the idea that these wrestlers can credibly take on an alter ego. It is a hard thing to do. I know he's deeply unfashionable and a lot of people want him to go away, but for a long time, Chris Jericho was considered a living legend, and in 2019, he was turning in career work.
Yeah.
Absolute career work. And then he was also the Painmaker. People didn't let Chris Jericho do this. Consider how acclaimed he was, how funny people thought he was, how refreshed he felt, how big he felt like in that relatively small promotion of AEW.
Wrestling's Madonna, wasn't he? He'd always come back and...
He was like, he finally had gone from B-plus player, if you want to use the dickhead phrase that WWE used to employ, B-plus player to, Jesus Christ, he's a living legend on career form, and he looks like he can be the ace of a company who might even compete with WWE. Yes. I'm just trying to give you the context of how big Jericho was in 2019, and then he was a Rainmaker, and people just instantly went, no.
That's with the hook of, what if an intergalactic serial killer could feel love?
Indeed, and what a hook that is. Your days are over, Spider-Man. But to be like less facetious about it, that's how tall in order this is. Chris Jericho, and I have to just underscore, put in bold, whatever, all of this, because my God, he was on top of the wrestling world, no lower in 2019. ... And then he was the Painmaker. People just said, yeah, you can be Le Champion, you can be the ace, you can be one of the funniest guys. You can be all things to all men, Chris Jericho in 2019. You are not the Great Muta, and you're not Mick Foley. That is a step too far. Don't take the piss out of us. It's a tall order to do this kind of thing. Very few people you can just be Crow Sting if you want. Yep, you can do it, Sting. Muta, Kaiji Muta, you can be Great Muta. Mick Foley, you can be Cactus Jack. Very few people can just take on a new persona and say, that's fine. I'll buy it because it's you and you've got this legendary career, or you're so popular, or you can pull it off so well. Like, certain wrestlers can and can't get away with it. Bo Dallas and Dexter Lumis, it's going to be a tall order. And here's the other point. The twist is better. There's at least precedent for this sort of thing to work. We've seen it with Muta, we've seen it with Sting, we've seen it with Foley. There's precedent for this interpretation. If, in fact, it's true, this twist to work. The problem is that if they're not scary, supernatural, demonic entities, right now, Chad Gable, who not 6 months ago, maybe about 8 months, 9 months ago now, was taking the beating of a lifetime by Gunther and going back and back and back for more because he just really felt like he could do it. He didn't care how much it hurt. He wanted that pain. He wanted to prove himself against the toughest people. Chad Gable now, if these people aren't supernatural entities, is now scared of Nikki Cross with a smoke machine.
That's a good point.
With a dry ice machine. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's always going to be on some level farcical. It just maybe at this point is on a level that's less farcical than it has been, where it could have been, and there is actual precedent for maybe it to work. Those are my thoughts.
Fascinated to know your thoughts. Let us know in the comment section or on X at WhatCulture WWE. What do you make of the latest developments with the Wyatt Six?